If you grew up in the late 70s or 80s, Thursday nights had a certain rhythm to them. You knew the theme song before the first note finished. You knew which chair Jack was going to fall out of. You thought you knew everything about that little Santa Monica apartment. But there's a lot hiding just beneath the surface of this show. Details tucked into the credits, the casting, the sets, and the stories that most people never caught. Today, we're going through 25 small details you missed in Three's Company.
Your nose is growing.
Terry, you're the reasonable one.
Your nose is in my way.
Detail 25. The apartment building was actually a house. For 8 seasons, the show told you the gang lived in an apartment complex in Santa Monica. The exterior shots, the ones in the opening credits and used whenever the camera pulled back to show the building, were actually a single-family home located at 2912 4th Street in Santa Monica. It's a residential house, not a multi-unit building, built in 1928. Fans spent years trying to track it down, and even the author of the 1998 companion book, Come and Knock on Our Door, couldn't pinpoint the exact address. A location enthusiast eventually found it by walking Santa Monica blocks until the architecture matched. The house is still standing today, and it looks remarkably familiar. The interior sets, meanwhile, were built on sound stages. The first and final seasons were taped at Metromedia Square and ABC Television Center. Seasons 2 through 6 were filmed at CBS Television City in Studio 31. So across 8 seasons, the show bounced between facilities. Yet the apartment itself stayed perfectly consistent. Same kitchen, same couch, same front door that Mr. Roper was always about to walk through unannounced.
Mushrooms, an onion. We'll start with that.
Start what?
Eggs Madeira Funchal. Can you boil an egg?
Detail 24. They shot 3 pilots. Before anyone said yes, most people know the show was based on the British sitcom Man About the House, but fewer know that ABC made the production team shoot not 1, not 2, but 3 separate pilots before the network agreed to air it. The first pilot featured an entirely different cast. John Ritter's character was named David Bell and was an aspiring filmmaker, not a culinary student. The female roommates were played by Valerie Curtin and Suzanne Zenor. A BC passed. A second pilot was rewritten by the creative team behind All in the Family, Don Nickel, Michael Ross, and Bernie West. But the Chrissy character still wasn't right. It wasn't until the third pilot, with Ritter, Joyce DeWitt, and a last-minute Suzanne Summers, that the network finally said yes. That third pilot aired in March 1977 as the show's premiere episode. The first pilot used a different apartment building exterior too, a location called the Hacienda Palms, which appeared only in that one unaired version and was never seen again once production moved to its permanent exterior. 3 tries, 3 different configurations. Before the version that became a television institution finally came together.
I'm sorry. It's a mistake anybody could make. I mean, they don't look real.
Detail 23. The 3 stars had never met until the night they filmed. The role of Chrissy Snow still hadn't been filled when the third pilot went into production. With the deadline closing in, the team found Summers on an audition tape. She had done small roles on One Day at a Time and The Rockford Files. Network executive Fred Silverman made the call to hire her the day before filming began. She showed up having never rehearsed with her co-stars. No table reads, no run-throughs together, no getting-to-know-you dinners. Ritter had been working with earlier cast configurations. Summers arrived that morning. The 3 of them met for the first time on the night the cameras rolled. DeWitt has described the moment as genuinely nerve-wracking. DeWitt was the most theatrically trained of the 3. She had an MFA from UCLA. Ritter came in with television experience and a deep instinct for physical comedy. Summers brought an unguarded, natural quality that read as completely genuine on camera. Three very different skill sets walked into the same room on the same night and happened to click. The alternative, that they didn't, and the whole project collapsed, was equally plausible right up until the moment it didn't.
I think we were engaged. Come here, Jennifer.
Come on, please, go see if he's still in there.
What do you want to say? Please.
All right.
Detail 22. Billy Crystal auditioned for Jack Tripper. Before John Ritter made Jack Tripper one of the most recognizable characters in American sitcom history, Billy Crystal came in and read for the role. Crystal was a young comedian at the time, known mostly from talk show appearances and stand-up. He didn't get the part. He went on to find success on soap and later Saturday Night Live, and eventually built a film career that included When Harry Met Sally and City Slickers. Other actors who auditioned for Jack included Barry Van Dyke and Michael Lembeck. The producers even considered recasting Ritter at the last minute before the third pilot, feeling his physical, clownish take on the character read as too effeminate. ABC's Fred Silverman pushed back and kept Ritter on. That instinct was correct. What's strange to think about is that Crystal had also been considered for the role of Fonzie on Happy Days before it went to Henry Winkler. Two defining roles of late 70s television, and Billy Crystal auditioned for both of them. He ended up on soap instead, which itself became a cultural flashpoint for different reasons. The path that leads from Didn't Get Jack Tripper to When Harry Met Sally is not a straight line, but it worked out.
Oh, Jack, I've missed you.
You missed me?
Oh, yes. I should never have let you run away.
Detail 21. Lonnie Anderson also auditioned for Chrissy. Suzanne Summers wasn't the only future television star who wanted the role of Chrissy Snow. Lonnie Anderson, who would go on to be nominated for both Emmy and Golden Globe Awards for her role as Jennifer Marlowe on WKRP in Cincinnati, also auditioned for the part. She didn't get it. The three-way audition history of Three's Company, Crystal, Anderson, and the eventual cast, is its own interesting footnote in how differently the television landscape of the late 70s could have looked.
Did you hear that?
No. I didn't hear that either.
Detail 20. The theme song was written by the man behind Sesame Street, Joe Raposo, the Portuguese-American composer who wrote the Sesame Street theme song, and beloved Muppet songs including Bein' Green and C is for Cookie, was also the man who wrote the Three's Company theme. He also composed the theme for the Electric Company, making him responsible for the soundtrack to a significant chunk of American childhood, both its educational programming and its grown-up Friday night comedy. Raposo died in 1989 at age 51, just 3 days before his 52nd birthday, from non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. He never quite got the wider recognition his catalog deserved. Raposo also composed the themes for the Ropers spin-off. The drums on the Three's Company theme were played by Hal Blaine, a member of the legendary Los Angeles session collective, known as the Wrecking Crew, who also played on records by the Supremes, Neil Diamond, and countless others. According to Blaine, each time the theme was re-recorded as the cast changed over the seasons, Raposo would instruct him to play the drums bigger and louder than the version before. More energy with each new version. Whether you notice the difference between the Season 1 theme and the Season 6 theme is a separate question, but the intention was always to push the energy forward.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
This is our landlord. He's always doing that.
Detail 19. The cast was supposed to sing the theme themselves. The producers originally wanted Ritter, DeWitt, and Summers to sing the Come and Knock on Our Door theme themselves. Despite their objections, all three attempted it. Composer Raposo later described the results charitably as not close. Associate producer Mimi Sewell was even more direct, saying they didn't even come close. The vocals ended up being recorded by Ray Charles, not the legendary soul musician, but a Los Angeles session singer of the same name, and Julia Rinker. The three actors went back to doing what they actually did well.
You're gonna get sicker.
Mrs. Roper, I am not sick. I never was sick.
But Stanley says you are.
Detail 18, the brunette in the opening credits was Suzanne Summers. In the original opening title sequence, Jack Tripper is riding his bicycle along the boardwalk when a brunette in short shorts walks past and distracts him enough that he crashes. That woman, who served as the comedic setup for the whole credit sequence, was Suzanne Summers wearing a dark wig. John Ritter himself confirmed this, saying on camera, "That brunette is Suzanne with a wig. You can tell by her little Suzanne buns." The show was still in early pilot stages when that sequence was filmed, and budget and scheduling made it practical to use a cast member already on set, rather than hire a separate actress.
Oh, Jenna, Jack's in trouble. We gotta help him.
Oh, but how?
Well, let's call the police.
Detail 17. The boardwalk scenes were shot in Venice, not Santa Monica. The early season's opening credits, with the cast running, biking, and playing on the boardwalk, were not filmed at the Santa Monica Pier, despite the show being set in Santa Monica. Those scenes were shot along the boardwalk near Rose Avenue in Venice Beach. The season 4 opening was filmed at the Santa Monica Pier. And for seasons 6 through 8, when Priscilla Barnes joined as Terry, the entire opening was reshot at the Los Angeles Zoo in Griffith Park. 3 different opening credit sequences across 8 seasons, each one framing a slightly different version of the show's cast and tone.
Enough.
Jack, would you do me a favor and go in the kitchen and get Terry some more tea?
What?
I'll get your hand.
Detail 16. A baby in the zoo credits was John Ritter's son. In the 3rd opening credit sequence filmed at the Los Angeles Zoo, there is a brief moment where a small toddler in overalls approaches Janet and feeds the goats. That child was Jason Ritter, John Ritter's oldest son, who was around 2 years old at the time of filming. Jason would go on to his own acting career decades later, including roles in Parenthood and as the voice of Dipper Pines in Gravity Falls. He has said he doesn't remember the incident at all. According to him, the story is that he wandered away from his mother during the shoot, and the cameras just kept rolling.
All right.
Oh, hi, Mr. Roper, Mrs. Roper.
Oh, Jack, look who's here, Helen. Jack, what's up, Jack?
Detail 15. The Regal Beagle was inspired by real Santa Monica bars. The Regal Beagle, the neighborhood pub where the gang spent most of their social lives, was fictional. But the look and feel of it was reportedly inspired by 2 real Santa Monica establishments that still exist today. Chez J at 1657 Ocean Avenue and Ye Olde King's Head at 116 Santa Monica Boulevard are both cited as the inspiration behind the Beagle's design and atmosphere. If you ever find yourself in Santa Monica with a sense of nostalgia and a need for a drink, both places are still open for business. The beer will cost you considerably more than the $2 a pint that was common in 1977. The Regal Beagle set itself changed slightly over the course of the series. In the earlier seasons, it was a fairly simple pub interior. As the show's budget grew and the production became more confident, the set gained detail and character. The bar became a more central location across seasons, less of a background to scenes, and more of a genuine anchor for the social lives of the characters. By later seasons, the Beagle felt as lived in as the apartment itself, which was the point.
What happened? I mean, it must have been very embarrassing for you.
Yeah, well, it was nothing to write home about.
Detail 14. ABC bought out an entire theater to cast Mrs. Roper. When the producers were assembling the cast for the 3rd pilot, Audrey Lindley, who would play Helen Roper, the landlady with the perpetually disappointed marriage, was in the middle of a stage run at a Los Angeles playhouse. She was committed, the show was committed. ABC wanted her badly enough that the network reportedly paid the theater $8,000, equivalent to roughly $41,000 today, to buy out the entire venue for a Sunday so Lindley could be free to tape the pilot. They didn't ask the theater to find a replacement actress or reschedule the performance. They just bought the whole day. That's a fairly specific level of confidence in a supporting character. Helen Roper turned out to be worth it. The dynamic between Fell and Lindley, his oblivious self-satisfaction, her weary, affection-starved longing, became one of the show's most reliable engines. The audience saw them coming and still laughed every time.
You don't want to see Frankenstein and a Wolfman?
Well, can we see something more romantic?
Detail 13. Norman Fell based Mr. Roper on a real person he knew. Stanley Roper, the gruff, suspicious, perpetually put-upon landlord, wasn't entirely a writer's invention. Norman Fell, who played him, openly said the character was drawn from a real man he had known in his hometown of Philadelphia. A man who, in Fell's words, just can't do things right, whether it's being with a woman or fixing something, and yet, he thought he was the cat's meow. Fell described him as someone who thought highly of himself, believed he was well-dressed and attractive, and thought people were looking at him with admiration. Whether the man from Philadelphia ever watched the show and recognized himself is not recorded.
Need a lift over to the Baldwin home, Mr. Walton?
All right.
I have a letter from my mother in Richmond. The Baldwins are her cousins on Uncle Elwood's side.
Detail 12. John Ritter came off a regular role on the Waltons. Before Jack Tripper made John Ritter a household name, he was a familiar face to television audiences in a very different context. From 1972 to 1977, Ritter played Reverend Matthew Fordwick on the Waltons, a clean-cut, earnest country preacher on one of America's most wholesome primetime dramas. The contrast with Jack Tripper, the bumbling culinary student with a fake gay persona and a chronic inability to avoid misunderstandings, was about as wide as television comedy gets. Ritter was the son of country music singer Tex Ritter, so performing was in the family. But nobody watching him on the Waltons would have predicted where he'd end up. What makes that transition remarkable is how completely he shed the Fordwick persona. There's no trace of the gentle, soft-spoken Reverend in Jack Tripper. Ritter built an entirely new physical vocabulary for the role, looser, more chaotic, governed by momentum rather than deliberateness. The shift from one character to the other represents a range that the show's critics, who tended to dismiss it as lightweight entertainment, rarely gave him credit for.
I'm almost asleep out here.
Oh, I'll be out of here in just a second.
Good.
Detail 11. Don Knotts was already a television legend when he joined. When Norman Fell and Audrey Lindley departed the show in 1979 to star in the Ropers spin-off, the producers needed a new landlord. They cast Don Knotts as Ralph Furley, the loud, leisure-suited building manager whose brother had bought the apartment complex. Knotts was already iconic from 11 years as Deputy Barney Fife on The Andy Griffith Show, a role that earned him 5 Emmy Awards. Adding Knotts to the cast brought a different kind of physical comedy energy. Where Roper had been suspicious and deflated, Furley was theatrical and self-deluded. Knotts stayed through the remainder of the series, appearing in every season from 4 through 8. Knotts was in his early 50s when he joined Three's Company, and his instinct for playing a man who didn't quite understand why the world wasn't responding to him the way he expected was fully intact. Ralph Furley, in his loud polyester suits and general air of misplaced swagger, slotted into the show's ensemble as though he had always been there. The transition from Roper's resigned skepticism to Furley's oblivious bluster is one of those cast replacements that could have sunk a show and instead just changed its flavor slightly.
If I never see him again.
Oh, come on, you don't really.
No,
mean Mrs.
Jack!
Janet.
No, Jack!
Detail 10. The Ropers were promised they could return if their spin-off failed. When Norman Fell and Audrey Lindley left to star in The Ropers in 1979, they were reportedly given assurances that they could return to Three's Company if the spin-off didn't work out. The Ropers ran for 1.5 seasons and was canceled in 1980. By that point, Don Knotts had settled comfortably into the show as Furley, and the audience had moved on. Fell and Lindley did not return to Three's Company. The promise, whatever its specifics, didn't translate into a return. Both continued working in television and film in subsequent years, but neither came back to the Roper apartment.
You know Larry?
Sure. What are you giving away this time, your pet tarantula?
Larry.
Detail 9. Larry Dallas was originally a one-episode character. Richard Klein's Larry Dallas, Jack's relentlessly girl-chasing best friend and the source of much of the show's most reliable comic relief, was originally written as a one-time character. He appeared for a single episode and tested so well with audiences that the writers brought him back. Then made him a recurring presence, then essentially a cast regular. Larry and Jack are the only characters who appeared in all 3 iterations of the show: Three's Company, The Ropers, and Three's a Crowd. A one-episode side character ended up having more continuity across the franchise than almost anyone else in it. Richard Klein played Larry across all 8 seasons without a contract dispute, a spin-off, or a salary standoff. He was just consistently there, consistently reliable, and consistently funny. In a cast whose behind-the-scenes turbulence became part of the show's legacy, Klein's steady presence is the kind of detail that gets overlooked precisely because it caused no trouble.
Heart of her neuroses. And now that I'm on the verge of a breakthrough, there's one gap in my knowledge that's holding me back.
Detail 8. Jeffrey Tambour played 3 completely different characters. Long before Arrested Development or Transparent, Jeffrey Tambour appeared on Three's Company multiple times, playing 3 entirely separate roles across different episodes. He played Winston Cromwell III, a wealthy man pursuing Chrissy in Father of the Bride. He played Dr. Tom Miller, a psychiatrist whom Jack and Janet mistake for a mental patient, in Two Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And he played Dr. Philip Green, a dentist and romantic interest for Terry, in a later episode. 3 different characters, 3 different contexts, and apparently nobody on the production team found it unusual enough to stop, or they trusted that audiences watching week to week wouldn't connect the dots.
Chrissy, mine rhymed, okay?
Janet, excuse me.
What?
Did you remind Roper that he has to fix the refrigerator? Everything is freezing in there.
Yeah, relax. He said it.
Detail 7. John Larroquette snuck his own face into a cameo. In the season 3 episode, Jack Moves Out, future Night Court star John Larroquette appeared in a small role as a police officer. The part was written so that Larroquette would be wearing his cop cap throughout, keeping his face largely obscured, in and out in under a minute, effectively anonymous. Larroquette had other ideas. He later explained to the AV Club that he had written the Miranda rights inside the brim of his cap, so that when he needed to recite them during the scene, he had a reason to take the hat off. Hat came off. Face was seen. The producers left the scene intact. Larroquette went on to star as prosecutor Dan Fielding on Night Court, beginning in 1984, the same year Three's Company ended, and won 4 consecutive Emmy Awards for that role from 1985 to 1988. The story of how he ensured his face was visible in a minor Three's Company guest appearance is exactly the kind of thing you'd expect from someone with that much confidence in his own presence. He saw a small window and made it slightly larger. It worked.
Right, Jack. The Then you tell him. You tell that poor old man he has to get out.
Detail 6. Richard Klein was written out for 4 weeks for asking one question. Larry Dallas was one of the most dependable laughs on the show, but the actor behind him found out quickly how little tolerance the producers had for cast members stepping out of line. Richard Klein was written out of the show for 4 weeks after he said, at a production run-through, "I'd like to discuss my character." That was it. That was the entire offense. He didn't demand more money, didn't show up late, didn't cause a scene. He asked to talk about his character. He disappeared from the show for a month as the consequence. It says something about how the production was run that this was a punishable act. Klein came back, kept his head down, and continued playing Larry for the rest of the series without further incident. The contrast with the much louder and more public battles that Summers and others had with the producers makes Klein's quiet 4-week exile seem almost absurdly low stakes. But it wasn't at the time.
Janet threw her a big farewell party. Next morning, Chrissy made a...
Detail 5. Lucille Ball was a fan and hosted the 1982 retrospective special. The show attracted its share of critical contempt during its run. Feminist critics objected to certain portrayals. Parent groups complained about the content, and plenty of reviewers dismissed it as lowest common denominator programming. Lucille Ball was not among the critics. She was openly fond of Three's Company and specifically admired John Ritter's physical comedy, drawing comparisons to the classic slapstick tradition she had helped define on I Love Lucy. She hosted the show's 1982 retrospective special. The fact that one of the greatest physical comedians in television history was a fan of Ritter's work is not a small endorsement. The comparison to I Love Lucy was one Ritter himself was aware of and took seriously. The show's comedy structure, the misunderstanding that spirals, the lie that requires covering with a bigger lie, the moment where everything converges in the wrong way at the wrong time, was essentially the architecture of classic farce. The same engine that powered Lucy Ricardo's schemes powered Jack Tripper's. Ritter knew where it came from, and Ball's appreciation apparently meant a great deal to him.
But let's keep...
Detail 4. Priscilla Barnes said it was the worst 3 years of her life. Priscilla Barnes replaced Jenna Lee Harrison as Terry Alden in Season 6 and stayed through the end of the series. By most accounts, she was not happy about it. Barnes has said in interviews that her time on Three's Company was the worst 3 years of her professional life. She tried to leave but couldn't break her contract. She told CNN in 2002 that the producers were very, very controlling, including calling her into the office if they felt her hair was dyed too blonde. The irony is that the producers had previously given Jenna Lee Harrison a hard time as well, treating her as a temporary placeholder rather than a real cast member. Terry never quite got the warm welcome that Chrissy had once inspired.
I read your ad in the Times. Loans up to $5,000, no questions asked. Yeah, and I was one... Huh?
Detail 3. Suzanne Summers and Joyce DeWitt didn't speak for over 30 years. After Summers was written out of the show in 1981 following her salary dispute, the fallout between cast members was severe and lasting. Summers and Joyce DeWitt, who had worked alongside each other for 5 seasons, did not speak to each other for more than 3 decades. They finally reconciled in 2012 when Summers invited DeWitt onto her web series Breaking Through. The moment was covered by entertainment media as a genuine reunion after a very long silence. Summers had also reconciled with John Ritter, but that happened just days before Ritter died of an aortic dissection on September 11, 2003. The two had reportedly even discussed a cameo appearance on Ritter's then-current show, 8 Simple Rules, before his sudden death. The salary dispute that started everything involved Summers asking for an increase from $30,000 per episode to $150,000, matching what Ritter was earning at the time, plus 10% of the show's profits. The network and producers refused. Rather than simply firing her outright, they effectively sidelined her. Summers continued to appear in the show, but only in brief closing tag scenes filmed separately on different days, without any of her castmates present. She wasn't on the same soundstage as Ritter, DeWitt, or anyone else for those final appearances. When her contract expired, it wasn't renewed. She later sued ABC for $2 million. The case was settled for approximately $30,000.
Each of you! No, Jack, not on the table.
Detail 2. The show's first episode was the highest-rated mid-season premiere in network history at that point. Three's Company premiered in March 1977 in the middle of the television season, a time slot typically reserved for filler programming that networks expected to cancel quietly after its initial episode run. The ratings for that premiere were higher than those for any mid-season replacement series that had aired on network television up to that point. Critics had written it off. The network was cautiously optimistic at best. The audience had different ideas. By the 1979 to 80 season, Three's Company was the highest-rated comedy on American television, having passed both Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley on its own network. A show that wasn't supposed to last 6 episodes ran for 8 seasons and 172 episodes. The show entered syndication in 1982, 2 years before its network run ended, and the syndication sales reportedly exceeded $150 million. It debuted on cable in 1992 on TBS. Nick at Night picked it up in 2000. Antenna TV has aired it since 2011. The show that nobody believed in has now been in continuous circulation for nearly 5 decades, and it still airs somewhere in America on any given night.
How?
You may not know it, but when I was younger, they used to call me Fingers Furley.
Detail 1. Don Knotts had never done a 3-camera sitcom before and was terrified. For all of Don Knotts' television experience, 5 Emmys, 11 years on The Andy Griffith Show, there was one thing he had never done before he walked onto the Three's Company set, a 3-camera sitcom filmed in front of a live studio audience. The Andy Griffith Show used a single camera format, meaning scenes were shot without an audience present and edited together in post-production. Three's Company was the opposite. Multiple cameras running simultaneously, a live crowd in the room, the energy of a performance rather than a shoot. Knotts admitted in the biography, Andy and Don by Daniel DeVries, that he was genuinely nervous on his first day on set, feeling out of his depth in a format he hadn't worked in. Then, the studio audience saw him. According to the account, they gave him a 10-minute standing ovation before a single line was spoken. Whatever nerves he had walked in with, they didn't survive the first few minutes. The audience had grown up with Barney Fife, and they were ready to love Ralph Furley before he'd done anything at all. 8 seasons, 172 episodes, and a cast that somehow made it work even when things behind the scenes were anything but smooth. The details that built Three's Company, the accidental casting, the borrowed locations, the last-minute decisions that changed everything, are the kind of things you'd never know just from watching. But now you do. The show was dismissed by critics, targeted by parent groups, and written off before its first episode even aired. It ran for 8 years, topped the ratings, launched careers, and has never really left television. Whatever its flaws, something about it landed, and that something started with 3 people meeting for the first time on a Friday night and deciding, under pressure, to make it work. If this brought back some good memories, go ahead and hit like and subscribe. There's plenty more of this kind of thing coming, and we'll be here waiting for you.